Hello, hello. Happy Friday. Let me turn my camera on. Here I am. All right, first and foremost, let me apologize for not getting home in time on Wednesday to do a live. I still owe you guys one. I am very sorry. I am still putting a call out there for homeschool topics. If you've got one, I would be happy to record it this afternoon and get it up for you as a replay that you could watch and a replay. But in the meantime, let me get started with this, and might help to have my microphone in front of my face. So again, thank you for being here. Welcome to this live stream for members only. Why are Americans addicted to government education? Well, first of all, you might be wondering, why are you using the word addicted, Deb? That seems loaded. Well, I'm doing it intentionally, actually. When we think of an addict, or we think of somebody who is addicted to something, we think of someone who is so dependent on whatever the thing is that they're addicted to that it is physically painful for them to break away from it. It's so difficult, in fact, they could argue they can't without some kind of extreme change in their life, in their habits, without help, assistance, etc. It causes them psychological and oftentimes physical pain to end the addiction, to end the association with whatever it is, whether it be a substance or an activity like gambling, whatever. We think of addiction as something well beyond it's a bad habit. If you try and have withdrawal, for example, or you go ahead and then it's easier for you to explain going back to it than sticking with quitting because your immediate sense is pain. I would call that an addiction. And so I think the relationship that Americans have at this point with government education, and I would go so far as to include college. I really would. But I think it's certainly acute with K-12. I would put K-12 somewhere on par with, nicotine, dopamine. I would say heroin, but that, again, sounds so loaded and hyperbolic. So I'll just say nicotine. I'll say, I'll say dopamine or even sugar, in the sense that they don't immediately in and of themselves seem harmful and they won't kill you. But if you allow them to run your life and if you shape your life around them, they can be very expensive and very damaging. So I put them there. And I would say college is kind of more like, maybe addiction to social media. And I analogize it to that in the sense that we who even recognize how damaging and dangerous social media can be feel like we have no choice. Like we sort of have to participate. Our friends are there, our family are there, our communities are there. The way we interact at this point, we would be isolated and struggling. And that kind of brings me to the answer to the titular question, why are Americans addicted to government education? Well, let's run down the reasons. There are multiple reasons. There's no one reason. The first I would say is that we've had more than 100 years of our economy being built around children, offspring, off somewhere else, and busy during 9 months of the year and 5 days of the working week and so on and so forth. So that has certainly provided Americans with an expectation of a kind of free childcare. If you have children, there will be a place for them to go most of the year. At most, you will have to come up with something for them to do during the summer months. And increasingly, we see there are arguments against having a summer break. And in many urban areas, they even have childcare, summer camp, etc., paid for by the same system. And parents just shift gears from taking them to school, taking them to the summer daycare, summer program provided by the government. And we know that in cities like New York, they're also taking over the function of feeding the children. First it was lunch, then it became breakfast and lunch. And in the summertime, They said, well, we certainly can't leave these kids without food. They've grown used to that. So now we've got to also provide that during the summer. And because we need after school care, because people aren't done with work until later in the day, we have to have aftercare and even snacks and sometimes dinner. So when you provide this kind of crack, I mean, at this point, when you're giving people that level of the drug, in other words, I no longer have to provide for my own children. That's pretty hard to roll that back on the part of the government. First of all, they've done it. They promised it. They've led people to believe they can't function without it. And then the other side is people cease being able to function without it. Bosses start expecting people to be there. What do you mean you have to pick up your kids from school? Just put them in aftercare. Or, no, you have to start your shift at 3 p.m. or what. The entire system is organized around the expectation that parents don't have an excuse, that they have to go parent. And at this point, it's so reciprocal. Who could decide it begins here and it ends there? I mean, telling a parent at this point, you need to pull out of that and go against that grain, or, bad things are going to happen. Like what I say all day on my channel is like saying you've got to quit smoking and you've been doing it for 30 years, or your parents were smokers and then you were brought up to be a smoker, and then now you have to quit smoking because it's bad and it will lead to long-term consequences. And here's the thing, you're telling them it will lead to long-term consequences for their children, not for them necessarily. They can't seem to, families can't really connect those dots as yet. I try, but it's a tougher argument to make when the immediate pain will be, I won't be able to go to work. And the economy is such that I can't just go get another job that works around, shall we say, mommy hours and so forth. Now add the social component, that it's not just employers in the economy that have pushed more parents, plural, but especially mothers, into the workforce with this expectation of your kids are taken care of. What do you worry about? Oh, and P.S., you can't teach them that stuff anyway because we're better at it. We're the experts. So, you not only can do this, you should do this. Well, now add feminism. And not just the, hey, if you need to work, you can, and that will be fine, and you won't suffer undue stigma because you are a single parent, or your spouse left you or died, or, they're off in a war and not making enough money, whatever it is. So it didn't stop there, did it? We had Simone de Beauvoir saying women should not be allowed, literally, women should not be allowed to stay home with their children. They should not be allowed to choose to participate in what she called their own oppression. And we know Saint Simone is a big hero of second wave feminism. And so this became part of the messaging that girls and women got through, whether it's popular culture, other women, their mothers, and even, guess what, the government education system, right? Which picked up on it, taught generations of girls like, you can do anything and be anything and grow up to be, and you should work. And if you don't, you're a traitor to feminism. And so they grew up with the expectation that, yes, well, if I want to have children, no problem. I'll just put them back in the system. It was good enough for me. So, you're told this drug you're taking is healthy for your self-actualization and your, being true to your identity as a woman. It's not just, this is a necessary evil because you have to go to work and it's okay, we'll provide it for you. It's not just, you can go to work if you have to. It's, you should go to work to be socially accepted by this group that we've labeled you as identifying with, whether you want to or not. And that's another layer. You're now asking people, again, it's predominantly women that would be most likely to not use the system or, parent or educate their own children. And most mothers are not single mothers. There are a lot of single mothers, but most are not. So when you have at least a couple layers saying this is good and you should do it, That's pretty tough. It would be like everyone you know telling you that not smoking is weird. Not eating sugar is weird. It's pretty much like saying if you're not on social media and you don't watch television, that's odd behavior at this point. Of course, it's not. It's probably extremely healthy behavior. It's sort of like I've quit sugar completely. I'm 3 months, zero sugar. I've lost 18 and a half pounds. True story. In addition to that, I'm not just not sugar. I'm not, grains. I'm not eating a lot of things that are, you know, objectively not good for you in excess, but I've gone, cold turkey, and I wouldn't go back, but it is really hard for me to exist just with those things being cut out. Going out to dinner, we're going out for Thanksgiving dinner. I'm the weird one. I can't eat 90% of the menu. Now, if you're plant-based on top of that, maybe you can eat the grains, but I mean, it is difficult to be the outlier. It takes a lot of energy and effort and searching for your own community. And so then that brings me to the next layer, which is the fragmentation of community. So you have a culture of work is, what you got to do if you're a parent. You've got a culture that says this is really good for women in particular. And then you have a culture that tells you explicitly that you cannot do it as well. You being a parent cannot do the job of educating your own children as well as these schools do. Now, it's interesting to note, they don't say you can't do it as well as the government does. Maybe if they did, more people would go, right? I mean, if they said, you can't send a package as well as the government does when talking about the post office, you probably would also be like, what? But they don't say that. They say the U.S. Postal Service through rain and sleet and whatever it is they say, and make it into this great and wonderful thing. So instead they call it public education, not government education. We call it public. So you have the illusion that you own it. It's yours. And you have some say in it. And we'll give you a school board and have school board members, and you can elect them. And you have this notion that it somehow functions according to what you want. And even when you're not paying very, very close attention, they care deeply about that. They share your values and your needs and your wants. They have the best interests of your children at heart, just like you do. And what parent wants to think, I'm sending my child off to be raised and cared for by people who don't have their best interests at heart? And, definitely self-interested, probably even conflict of interest with my interests. And I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I've got to do it anyway because I have to go to work. Ironically, people, when compulsory education first came out, did think that and did know that and tried to any which way they could to avoid it, and often were visited by the truancy officer. But we don't do that anymore. It's been a while. And there's nobody better at marketing this public service, this public institution, than the institution itself. Their marketing materials are some of the best I have ever seen. So much so, I who know what I know will look at some school websites and be like, I see how that looks good. I see how that looks, if I could go back and put myself in the parents' shoes, looks amazing. Just like the pictures of, the glossy pictures of junk food, just like all of the stories about, any kind of thing that ultimately probably isn't very good for you. Think about how the way they market casinos. It's so much fun and exciting shows and free drinks, and come and enjoy the excitement of Las Vegas, not the dark, seedy underbelly of people losing all of their life savings and getting in hock to loan sharks. No, it's just, look how much fun you're going to have when you come and do this. Well, it's kind of the same thing. They're really, really good at cherry picking what parents want to see. Loving, caring teachers, looking over the shoulders of eager little students with smiles on their faces, looking like this is the best time I've ever had in my life, learning math. And then, of course, we have scenes of kids playing together or kids winning awards or whatever. And they'll take pictures like that, and they talk about every child is precious. They use highly emotional language that taps into the side of you that's maintaining the addiction, which is not your rational brain. It's the other part of your brain. that needs to feel like you're doing the right thing. Not think that you're doing the right thing, but feel like you're doing the right thing. It's the same voice that tells you as you have that other drink you probably shouldn't have. I've earned it. I deserve it. I had a rough day. Or if you eat your feelings or whatever it is. And the people who smoke. That's my one vice. I eat well. I exercise, but I smoke. Or whatever. Fill in the blank. They tap into the emotional side. And they're so incredibly good at it that parents will seek that. I have known parents to do this. I will tell them to go to the website of a school, of their school in their district, and start looking for things to challenge their biases or challenge this and, see what they find. And invariably they come back, and if they couldn't immediately find anything negative, they come back and tell me about all the new wonderful stuff they just saw that makes them feel more inclined to stick around. It's amazing, really. If you told them to go read the ingredient label on Ho-Hos, and instead they just looked at the pictures of the delicious looking Ho-Hos and watched a commercial of people enjoying themselves eating Ho-Hos or whatever, fill in the blank with your own not healthy thing, and then just came back and said, but they look like they're having so much fun. What do you think they're going to do? Put pictures on the website of kids enduring all kinds of violence and trauma and so forth. So then if I show them the other side, videos of violence, videos of, testimonies of kids who've been, not learned anything, test score, pick your poison. Well, you're cherry picking the bad stuff. It is exactly like having a conversation with an addict who tells you you're cherry picking all the downsides, you're emphasizing the negative, you're not understanding the benefit of the stress relief it provides, or it's an outlet, or it's just a small vice, or whatever. I've heard heroin addicts defend their heroin addiction. It's not my fault. I'm physically addicted. Well, that's the one I hear when I tell parents, they'll say, I can't, I have to work at this. I say, so you're physically addicted to this system. What are you talking about? Well, you feel physical pain at the notion of having to find a different job or having to go build community that you currently do not have, to ask for help, to watch your kids so that you can continue to work, but they'll get an education outside of that system. What you're describing to me is you feel there's something physically that you cannot do. That is a physical pain. It's not emotional. You're telling me you can't. That's what the heroin addict says. So then I say, have you tried? And sometimes they'll say, yes, I've tried, but reason, it was hard, couldn't find anyone, got a bunch of answers, no, so I went back to it. Or I stuck with it. Or I tried homeschooling for a few months, but my kid didn't, was this, that, the other, and so it was hard. It was hard to be home alone. It was hard. I couldn't find friends for my kids. Well, if the idea is that it should be easy to educate your children, then you're going to be an easy target for addiction to the government system. If that's your metric, it should be easy. Who said? Who told you that raising your children should be easy? I see that you can only stay for a little while, Crystal. So, I'm going to keep going, but the replay will be up afterwards. So if you have to go, it's totally fine. You'll be able to catch up with the rest of it. But there's probably not a ton more to say, but to review, we have the economy being structured around it. We have these social pressures on women to be around it, and men for that matter as well. There are only a few house husbands out there, or men who stay home, or men who support their wives staying home. So the flip side of the whole feminist thing is there aren't that many men who haven't likewise bought into the idea of the two-income household, that is their expectation of their wives or of their partners. And it's not sex specific. You have lesbian couples, gay, whatever. The expectation is we'll both work unless, and you got to have some really good reason. But when you're out there dating, it's not a topic that comes up that much. How do you feel about one of us staying home to raise the kids if we were to get married and have kids? I mean, People don't even talk about how they feel about abortion when they should. That one's even bigger, believe it or not. The expectation is not, well, surely she'll get an abortion. Some people it is, but it isn't as much as surely we'll put the kids in school. And then there are parents who have that expectation until they see their kids, or until the kid goes to kindergarten and comes, so their shiny, happy little child comes home from kindergarten a few too many days in tears, feeling, a totally changed person. And the mom goes, maybe this was a mistake. But is she even going to be able to give voice to that feeling? I've met so many people who feel that way and they don't. They just keep going. I can't talk to my husband about it. I can't very well say that, he married me and I had a 6-figure job. We bought this house because. So it's a conversation that should be had, and it's not had that much. Our culture has completely embraced the notion of a 2-income family. You're the outlier if you break out of that. This is, I believe, part of why homeschooling is so much more popular in the Christian community, because they're more traditional in other respects. The conversation about how you're going to raise the kids and who is someone going to stay home and do it happens in those kind of relationships and people who date with their Christianity in mind. It doesn't tend to happen in the secular dating world. It doesn't happen even in the Jewish dating world unless you're Orthodox. Whereas you don't need to be necessarily fundamentalist Christian to have that conversation. You just need to be observant and have that conversation. So it's a big deal. And I think the community one that I was about to touch on is one that plagues homeschoolers too. And this is where I'm going to get personal. So here I am, a mouthpiece for homeschooling and government schooling and all this. And for me, it is a daily struggle. I will admit to you freely, it is a daily struggle homeschooling a lone high schooler. I have one in college. My other homeschooled kid in high school is living with her dad at the moment. So I've got one here alone. It's like having, an almost empty nest, but with one homeschooler left, and she's 15 and a half. And I am finding that I'm never going to send her to public school. So that, that's not happening. But the culture being arranged around it, around public school, and the addiction everyone else has had to it has made my existence and my daughter's existence that much harder. It would be like living in a neighborhood where everybody around you is a heroin addict and you're just dodging, their bad behavior. You're dodging all their stuff constantly. You want to make a friend, not with a heroin addict. You want to, go socialize, not with a heroin addict. I mean, and I don't mean to make it sound like these are bad people. They just have completely different interests, completely different agendas, completely different schedules. Even if they were, really nice addicts, they kept it under control or whatever, they can't conceive of your life. What? Huh? It's like, how do you live? How do you function? It's like being a vegetarian and having to have all of your friends are carnivores, heavy duty carnivores. And, come on over for dinner. We're having roast. And you're like, yay. You want to be included, but maybe not for that. Or you want to invite them over for dinner and they're like, where's the beef? So it feels like that, where my kid wants to reach out and be friends with people, and they have some really mixed up ideas about the world, about life, about politics, about values, about everything. Because it's not just they're occupying different space all day. They're occupying different headspace. The government system is what it is. And they need to keep you addicted. So after a while, just like the addict, your brain function changes. You literally think differently than a non-addict. And so we tend to feel isolated, even with a co-op. We have a once-a-week co-op. Co-op is the bright light in our week. My daughter's there right now. She looks forward to it every week, even though they don't always do things she wants to do. She doesn't care. There's, friends, people to go see, and it's a really positive thing in her life. But when she goes to her other extracurriculars, they're populated by public school kids. And she cannot really make friends with those. She's tried. And it does not work because it is exactly like trying to talk to people who are on some kind of drug. Then she tries to engage with them in, sort of monitored social media interaction. Same thing. She's blocked more people in the last 2 weeks than ever in her life because of what's going on in the Middle East and the nonsense being shared and shoved in her face and the threats and all that. And she doesn't even know what Hamas did. She just knows she doesn't want to deal with these people. So it's very isolating. So when I talk about the atomization of our culture and the fragmenting of community, public school, government school has contributed to that by forcing people to live together in neighborhoods not based on their shared values or shared, needs for raising their children in a safe environment, just physically right around the house, but around the school, the good zip code where the good schools are, property values. We're going to arrange it around an economic need and around the school that you are by law going to have to send your kids to. We're arbitrarily throwing people together based on what they can afford. That's it. That's really arbitrary to group people essentially by class. No other reason. So I live in a neighborhood now with people, and I've tried meeting them. I've tried going, door to door to introduce ourselves. We have literally nothing in common but the fact that we live in this neighborhood. So that makes it really hard. And it's not like people put up a flag going, homeschooler here, like, come find me. I've thought about ways of doing that, but everybody around here goes to public school. The place empties out. It's like a bedroom community. And we have a lot of that all over America. Even if you don't live in an urban area, people aren't in their homes all day like they used to be. Even during COVID, when we were locked in, people didn't speak to other people. We weren't really allowed to, but we didn't lean on our neighbors. We don't even know our neighbors. I live in a sidewalk community with all kinds of hubbub, activity with our HOA, and they have this celebration and that celebration. You know how people know each other? The only way that these families know each other is through the schools their children go to. I've gone to some of them. I've showed up at the chili cook-off and the Halloween festival and the Harvest Festival when my kids were smaller. They all knew each other because of school. Oh, we haven't seen you at the school. Which school do you go to? And as soon as you tell them they're homeschooling, it's like you have leprosy. Oh, that's nice. How's that going? But they don't want to know you beyond that point. So they're also addicted to the forced kind of community. John Taylor Gatto talks about this. It's not really a community. It's a network. I know you and you know him and they know each other. We all know each other because zip code and school. Our kids are in the same class. You may or may not share the same values. In fact, you probably aren't even going to talk about that until you've known them really, really well. But that's not usually what the first conversation is about. So what you find is the public school parents are constantly talking about the goings on around the school, the gossip of this, that, not about the education at the school, just the whose parents know this and Johnny Little and so got in trouble for that. And this one had that teacher and that one had the other teacher. And what are their grades? And have you seen that homework? And it's really, I eavesdrop on these conversations when I go to my daughter's extracurricular activity. I sit in the little parents' lounge and I could record it. It's virtually the same conversation every time. The parents actually, in some cases, are sitting there while their child is doing their acrobatic stuff. Silks is what she does, doing their kids' homework. And when I say doing, I mean on the Chromebook, trying to find the assignment for the child who's confused and can't figure out where it is, and then starting to do it. Oh, I see. So they got to bring up this video. Let me go get it for them. They'll save them time later. Okay, I said, can you believe this? This is so dumb. All right, anyway, but they have to do it. And I'm just sitting there like, blah, blah, blah. So they are then getting their children addicted to people sort of doing things for them, taking care of, the stuff that's, it's confusing, it's hard to find. Why wouldn't they then subsequently be addicted to the whole thing and have the expectation that when they grow up, they'll send their kids, if they have them, and so on. And the kids are addicted to letting mom and dad orchestrate their friendships through the school because it's convenient. I don't have to worry about driving a distance for you to meet your friends. Just walk down the street because they go to the same school. And I know their parents because they go to the same school. But it's all around the school. It's not around other things. And that means that these kids have no idea. And that's why COVID shut down in the schools was such a problem. It wasn't a problem in the sense that they weren't depressed because they didn't get to go sit in their classes. No, they were probably depressed because they had absolutely no idea how to function without like other people doing stuff for them. And their parents were probably like biting their fingernails, having to be forced into association with their children all day and their spouse and be stuck in the house. People have gotten to the point of being addicted to having their whole day and calendar orchestrated by the government. The proximity to other people to make friends, orchestrated by the government. And unless and until we can name it, call it what it actually is, which is an addiction, and begin to unravel what it really gives them, we won't be able to dismantle the system ever. I mean, I would love to do that. You know that I would love to do that. I'm an abolitionist. But first, people have to, do their little 12 step of like, hello, my name is, I'm a parent and I'm addicted to government schooling. And here's my story. I genuinely believe that's what needs to happen. They need to say, this is what I get out of it. I get free daycare. I feel like I belong. I feel like I fit in. I don't feel weird. I don't feel like I have to explain my life to anybody, etc. Now, we may reach a point, this is the last thing I'll say, we may reach a point that the downsides become so public, which is part of why I do what I do, where we help the addicts confront this by making it harder to justify staying in the system than leaving, and giving them things to point to help them out of it and to help create community so they can get some training wheels out of it. Like, you're not alone. There are lots and lots of other people who agree with you that this is messed up. You are not the lone voice in the wilderness wanting another way. That's why I believe we're seeing a rise in homeschooling, why we're seeing a rise in microschooling and other alternatives, is that more people are starting to see the cost-benefit analysis to their social standing and their physical sense of well-being. Now add to that inflation and the idea that, it's almost costing me to go to work with gas prices, wardrobe, clothing prices. I got to eat lunch out, this, that, the other. And then on top of that, I need, to make up for this stuff with my kid with therapy and who knows what else and medicines. And maybe, plus my relationship with my children sucks. I'm hearing that from a lot of people. So maybe it's actually not to my economic best interest to keep doing this either. So we're starting to see the dominoes begin to fall very, very slowly, though. Very slowly. I would, again, liken it to when people started to say, maybe I'm not going to smoke. Not going to smoke anymore. But also, I'm not going to start because I see where that goes. You're talking through a little thing in your neck. So I think we're at about that stage. We're at about the Yul Brynner stage of like, hi, I'm dying of lung cancer, and I'm here to tell you don't smoke in the first place. I think we're about there in American education. So we're a ways off from people quitting en masse. But if we think about it like an addiction, and we talk about it like an addiction, and we treat the people who are addicted like addicts as opposed to some kind of hostile enemy, or, I'm not saying they have a disease, there's free will here. But if we understand that this operates very similarly to an addiction, we might have a better chance of helping people break the cycle, which is ultimately what I want to do with all of my work. I have compassion for them. It is hard. As I said, my daily life is a struggle to help my daughter make friends and have a normal life as a homeschooling teenager who's a public school refugee. So had she stayed homeschooling, and I will tell those of you who are homeschooling little kids, please, please, please keep doing it. Build those communities, those connections with other kids, and keep them going, because when they get to be teenagers and they need to pull away from you, because they do, and they need to make their own friends, that is going to be crucial to their happiness, their success, and their willingness to continue to homeschool. Because what is very challenging is if you end up with a kid who's 13, 14 years old, who says, I want to go to school, Mom, and I hate you if you won't let me. And you know it's poison, absolute poison. But fighting with teenagers is also pretty bad. So you have to build that community. Absolutely must. And it's incredibly hard for some of us. I mean, I'm a little bit of a loner to begin with. So I have to go put myself out there and try to find homeschooling families. It's very challenging. But I encourage you to do it when they're small because it's much easier. And then just keep it going. Anyway, that is the topic for today. Thank you for coming, Crystal. I really appreciate it. This replay will be up today. I will be able to get it up today because I have some time. And any of you who are just tuning in or want to watch on the replay, it will be there. So thanks again. I will be back on Monday. If you have a homeschool topic, please bring it up. I want to record something homeschool related later today. I'll have to come up with something if I don't have one, but I'll do another on Monday. And also, please tune in to my YouTube channel on Monday when I will be premiering my show with Margot Morgan. She is a Gen Z kid who's going to tell us all about what it was really like for her. And we don't often get to hear from those voices. So I'm really excited to bring you that and hope we can get a big audience there. Ideally, I'd like to have some high school kids there. She wants to have a young audience. So if you know anyone, let them know about it. There isn't a link yet because it's going to be a recorded premiere. So I'd have to make a trailer. I might just do that just so there's a link. But that's what we've got. So thanks again. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.